Hey everyone, Ali here with HR for Health, and we're back for part two of this series on HR gone wrong, some real nightmares and how to prevent them stories with our good friend Greg Essenmacher. Greg, welcome back. Welcome back.
Thanks so much. Did you like the Chuck Worley, the 2 and 2? Did you see that
Yeah,
little hand motion? Did you miss that?
yeah. Oh man, so we had a really good discussion with part one, and for anyone who's missed that, whoever's missed that, please go back and look at that. There's a really great story that Greg goes into detail on regarding a doctor who, with despite his best intentions, had done some things that needed to be avoided, and unfortunately suffered through the consequences. Why do we share these stories? Why are we doing this three-part series? Well, it's really kind of simple. We're doing it so that you learn from other people's mistakes, right? The best way to learn, the best way to avoid problems is to learn from other people and then make sure that it doesn't happen to you. Or if it is starting to happen to you, you can raise your hand and ask for help, right? You raise your hand and ask for help because all too often, we sometimes might get embarrassed that, oh, this doesn't happen to anybody else. It's only happening to me. Oh, I'm the worst dentist or I'm the worst business person. None of that is true. Okay. None of that is true. Everyone's doing the best that they can. Of course, there's some people who do things slightly better than others. Maybe they have more experience or maybe they have someone who mentored them. But at the end of the day, you can only do what you know. And so these stories highlight common errors that we have seen and that Greg has seen, and we talk about how to avoid them. So, Greg, welcome back. Nice to see you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, it's really all about learning. And if you're in a situation to raise your hand for help, I like to equate it to playing whack-a-mole. If you're a business owner, Ali, you're a business owner, I'm a business owner, it seems like life in business is like whack-a-mole. Something comes up all the time. And if you can go to experts to help you get over the hump of whatever it is, spend the time, man. Get around the corner and be able to have somebody help you through it. It's a lot faster than having tried to figure it out yourself. So yeah, I just think that's spot on what you just shared to open up the part two of this series here.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you feel like the whack-a-mole, like someone's hitting you over the head. And so, anyways, at least that's how I feel sometimes. All right, so let's talk about employment manuals. I know you got a great story to share with our audience, so I definitely want to hear that. But I'm going to give a little bit of background. Now, as most of our audience knows, because many of them have listened to me preach this for almost 20 years now, which is the importance of having an employment manual in your practices, right? It's super important that you have a manual that's up to date, that's specific to your office, and that you can hold your employees accountable to. I mean, it comes really as simple as that. And when I talk to the lawyers who sue our doctors, a lot of them will say, if there's no employment manual or if an employment manual is outdated or whatnot, it's an easier case for them because there's less that you as the doctor can rely on to defend yourself. And so, of course, if you have less defense, then there's going to be more of an opportunity for these lawyers to sue you. And so we absolutely, believe in the employment manual. Now, where can you get one? Well, there's a lot of pretenders out there, right? There's a lot of pretenders. There's payroll companies that give, sample, employment manuals that they give to you, and they give it also to a dry cleaner or a coffee shop and others that have nothing to do with dental and medical practices. There's companies, law firms that charge five, six, $7,000 to put one together. I mean, there's just a lot of places you can get it, but there's no place like you can get it like HR for Health because one, it's part of your service. So it's just part of it. You don't pay any extra for it. But two, and this is the best part, it's updated every year for you as part of your service. So you don't have to go spend another two, three, $4,000 to update something that you had spent much more developing the first time. And that way you save that money long term. So there's a huge, huge savings there. Now, with that being said, Greg, talk to us about this client that gave that you know had this conversation with regarding their outdated manual, because this story about the handbook is unfortunately very, very common, and I want the audience to hear all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the other part too that I mean, you didn't even my favorite part and why we use HR for Health as our partner with all of our clients when we onboard and why it's a part of our accelerator and elite package. It's because it's customizable in the beginning. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to pay, if you want to do PTO a certain way, if you want to give certain holidays and not others, if you want to go right down the list, that
Yeah.
you can customize it to your practice because we talk about that. How do you differentiate? As a practice, differentiation in full arch, which is what we do at G&A Consult, is so critically important of how are you different from the guy next door or the gal next door or the big box store you're trying to compete with. Same with the HR for Health handbook. And it's so relevant for this story we're going to talk about in this second part series of the webinar. When we
Yeah.
onboard a new client, the first thing we ask for, because it's not just the coaching side, right? Because that's what a lot of consultants do, right? The consultants do. But it's the operational side, because the handbook should be a living, breathing document that is partnering with and works with clients, right? And for the employees, with the employees, not just something to hold and lord over them when something goes wrong. And so when we started working with this particular client, I had asked for the handbook and said, what are you using for your employee manual, your employee handbook? Eventually, I got it. It took a little bit of time. It was about a month, 5 weeks in. Whenever it takes that long, it tells me that they probably are not using it on a regular basis. But when
Right.
I did get it, Ali, I got it and it was in a PDF form ish, and it had a whole bunch of pencil marks all over it. And so I kind of just like leafed through it, right? I glanced through it. And so I asked the question, and I'm like, so I have a few questions about the employee manual to the office manager. And her comment was, yeah, it's not really up to date.
Yeah.
So what exactly did you send to me? What
Yeah.
that told me is that it's not really something that is active and that they're using. Well, one of the big pieces, and Ali, I didn't even tell you about this ahead of time, so brace yourself, right? So one of the challenges with this particular practice is that two of the employees were on salary and the rest were hourly. So then
Mm-hmm.
we got into the great working with the practice owner. So let's talk about the agreements you have with those two that are on salary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the challenge started to come in.
Right.
Because the two that were on salary, it was agreed that whenever the doctor takes time off, the salaried people would take time off, one in the front, one in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly. Because they were also kind of sort of expected on Fridays to kind of work every other, so somebody in leadership was there. There is no real rhyme or reason. Okay, well, let's see like the documentation. What does it say about their salary? There
Mm-hmm.
was nothing documented in salary.
Oh,
And
oh,
then one
you're
was
breaking
being
my heart,
favored
Greg.
over
You're
the
breaking my heart.
other. One could take time off if there was a special occasion, the other, not so much.
Yeah.
So now we have disparity of how one's being treated over the other of the two that are on salary. So we've
Yeah.
got more coming. But I just want to start there and see what your comments are coming from a company like yours. How do you think this is going so far for this practice and us working with them now that we're 2.5 months in working with them as a new client?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I'll tell you from my perspective, I wish I could say that this is unique, but I hear this kind of story so often, right? So often. Paying people, we'll start with the last topic you brought up, paying people on a salary basis, but maybe, they aren't supposed to be exempt. And so maybe they're still supposed to get, overtime and lunches and breaks. Paying people hourly, but not, blocking out time for their lunches. There's real issues regarding compensation and wage and hour, which is one of the reasons why, in terms of just cases that are filed against, dentists, cases regarding compensation and hours and whatnot are always the top marker. Now, I have to say something, and this is really important for our audience to hear, and something, kudos to you, Greg, for doing this, because most consultants, whether they're doing full arch like you or not, don't ask this question, which you are asking. And I think for anybody that's listening, if you are working with a consultant who is not talking to you about HR compliance, or at least asking to see the manual, asking and referring you to HR for help, they may not be worth their weight, because what's the point of having a consultant in the office if you're not working with the team as well? And Greg, this is one of the things that separates you, that I know our clients love, is the fact that you're so hands-on with the team. In addition to the doctor, and in addition to all the other education, you're working with the team so hand in hand. And so I think that is incredible, and it shows why you're having so much success in what you do. So.
Well, and you hit on a key word, and thank you for that. You hit on a key word there, right? And it's team. It's a 360 view of a practice and its team. If you're just working with one or two elements of a practice and you're not looking at the others, if you pull one lever, the other ones are affected. Yep. If you go from doing 2 or 3 arches a month to 6 or 7, every other part of the team and the schedule is affected in some way, shape, or form. And so not having that 360 view, and I'll admit, Ali, when I first started my consulting business and, left the Neodent, which, it was a great opportunity. I loved every part of it. When I left and started this, I didn't really have that aspect. And I'm very grateful that I brought in a director of operations that had scale a group from 5 to 36 locations in 22 months. I needed to bring in the operation side. By the way, she speaks operations because she came through operations. I do not. We speak totally different languages. We have a whole interpreter that needs to happen all the time. But I'm grateful, right? And that's about bring in somebody who specializes in those areas. And the reason I bring that up is now not just knowing to ask the questions, but how to implement and how to work with. And so, like you said, with the team and the team aspect, because inevitably when we start working with practices, it's all about elevating the whole team and those that want to elevate. And here's the thing, sometimes individuals who get you there can't get you to the next level there that you're trying to get to. And that's okay. It doesn't mean they're bad people. Maybe it's just not the right person in the right seat type of situation. And we see that often. That was the situation with this particular office manager. And so from that point, the decision was made fairly early on. It was about the 60-day mark of engagement with this particular client. The keys there are, great, let's start documenting what we need. And let's know that we're going to make a transition into something that's leveling you up, because you're getting ready to open up in a brand new space, a quarter mile away, right? 6-8 months down the line. Let's get into that transition strategy so you can grow into that. Let's start documenting. Let's take a look at what that looks like. And so the long and the short of it is that there wasn't a whole lot of documentation that was happening. There was an impending ask for some time off, like 3 months down the line. We knew there was like this tick, tick, tick going on, because there wasn't this agreement in writing, right, at all. And so we started gathering the documentation. Let's bring it. Let's get an arrangement. She was getting, the ops manager was getting rather emotional. You could see the writing on the wall. We've worked with enough clients where you see the writing on the wall. And the owner founder wasn't great at documentation or at this type of confrontation, if you will, right? And so we started putting the things in place and asked to put the things in place. One of the asks that I made of the founder, of the owner, was simply, please don't make an emotional decision. Don't make an emotional decision at any point in time, because it will cost you dearly. I remember having that conversation very specifically. Now, I'm going to play this little game with you, Ali. Do you think that he took that advice? Because we'll be using it in a case study today if that were the truth.
I guess not. Yeah.
Doctor, owner, founder goes on vacation for a week. The practice shuts down for a week. The office manager takes most of that week off. So does most of the team. The first day back, lunch break rolls around. Office manager is nowhere to be found. Sure enough, she is away doing something. I think it was for a nail appointment or something.
Yeah.
Doctor finds out, gets very upset, fires her over a text message.
Oh, yeah.
I would consider this an emotional response.
Yes. To say
Needless to say. there was some fallout from this particular situation.
Well, and I'll tell the audience this, and I said this. I was doing a seminar this past weekend, actually in Las Vegas, and um, a doctor raised their hand and asked the question, well, what if what if something happens and I absolutely just need to let go of the person? What should I do? Um, and I said to her, it's very easy. You send the employee home. Don't fire her right then and there. You got to get your house in order, send them home, right? Just you're going to pay them a couple of $100 maybe for the rest of the day, if even that. Send them home, and then that way you can step back, right? Take a moment, take a deep breath, and figure out, okay, what are my next moves, right? What are my next moves? And that might be, okay, I got to call Greg because he's my coach and I'm going to have him help me walk through this. Or it might be I'm going to call HR for help because there's a legal question or an HR question that they need to answer. But you figure out the next step and then you enact on that step, right? Because a lot of times, and I'll tell you, and I know, Greg, you've given this advice to a lot of people, but a lot of times when we're under stress as business owners, and everyone listening, including me, Greg, everyone, there is a moment, actually, probably a lot of moments, where you're under extreme stress and something small happens with one of your team members. And because of all this other stuff that you're dealing with, you just lose your mind, right? Like, how could my tray not be ready for this procedure? It might be a small thing. Yes, is it upsetting that your tray's not ready for this procedure? Of course, the staff member, the assistant has to get up, take off their gloves, go get the new instrument, come back, put on new gloves. I get all of that. But would you have exploded? Would you have gotten that upset had it not been for the other things? And the answer is probably no. But sometimes that happens, and sometimes that reaction is something that we can't control. So my advice to everyone listening is, if you are in that scenario, don't fire by text. Is it okay to do it? Sure, but we want to be deliberate by it, right? We want to have a plan, right? Is it legally okay? Yes, but we want to have a plan. We don't want to just do it haphazardly. So send the employee home, take a moment, regroup, and then take action, right? So.
Yeah, it absolutely. And with our elite clients, I do mindset coaching with them. And one of the things that I share right out the gate is whenever there's elevated emotional intensity, is to pause. Once you pause, you give yourself an opportunity to regather. And it's very difficult to do. We're humans, right? I love that there's human emotional response. There's a great line from the movie Parenthood, and it's toward the end. It's with Steve Martin, and it's back, I think it's from the 90s. And there's a grandma sitting at the kitchen table giving advice and says, some people like the carousel. It just goes round and round and round. I like the roller coaster and the ups and downs, right? The ups and downs, if you're a successful business person, there's going to be ups and downs. But when you are on that down and it's very intense, pause, right? And you can ask yourself, if you're in a frame of mind, is this a 5-minute, a 5-hour, a 5-day, or a 5-month problem? Meaning, how relevant is this going to be at those different intervals? Right? Can you deal with it in a different way? And so in this particular situation, the fallout over the next 48 hours, that particular office manager, because there is a group text with, it's a fairly small office, there's 6-7 employees besides the doctor. Suddenly now the group text goes out. And can you believe he did this? And then it's starting to create sides. Whose side are you on? And then it's, what is every perceived aggrieved action over the last 6 to 7 years? That's where the fallout happens. Then the doctor reaching out, I'm now reaching out, do you know a good attorney that can help me to figure out what next steps look like? It's very expensive. Again, the financial impact and then the emotional impact and team impact on culture within the practice itself. That has a tremendous amount of long-term and short-term impact with that particular practice. All because, like I shared with you, right? It goes back to, if there's no good manual in place and there's no good way of saying, maybe there's a better way to be able to say, yes, I do want to put these two employees on salary. Should they be salary exempt or should they not be salary exempt? And if so, do you have the ducks in a row? Do they have employment agreements or at least a letter saying, here is a letter that says this is what we're going to and this is what the expectation is. And then at least those individuals understand what is our arrangement of your employment and those pieces. And then having a 24-hour helpline of like, I'm on fire. I'm gonna send this text. I just
Yeah.
need a lifeline right now. I'm feeling really frustrated. I gotta do something, right? And that type of situation, which is critically important in that moment. And I think that's really what's a partner like HR for Health and why we partner with y'all rather than, a paycheck company or some type of payroll company or you name it that has manuals. Because I love how you said that too, right? You can go with a law firm and it's really expensive. You can actually get a template off of the internet. Don't get me wrong. You probably go to ChatGPT and get one, but
Right. Yeah.
something that's dental specific because that differentiation, customization, like we do at G&A Consult for full arch clients, it's the same. You want to be able to customize for what your particular need is and know you have someone in your corner when you need to leverage it. And I think that's what's so critically important.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, Greg, can you go through actually you called it what did you call it? You go through a what did you say? Psychological assessment with your clients? What was it? What was
Yeah,
the
so
exact word?
mindset coaching. Yeah, it's
Mindset
mindset
coaching, right?
coaching with
So
our elite clients. Yeah.
I want to know what that is. Walk me through that. What is a mindset coaching? Because I think it's so important. It just but go through it with me, would you?
Yeah, the big thing is working on because it starts at the top and it really trickles down all the way down, not only through staff, but also through patient experience, right? So
Mhm.
case acceptance, especially in big cases like teeth in a day, fix full arch, that 20, 30, $50,000 case. Case acceptance is so critically important in order to elevate that. It really is all about the patient experience. And the
Sure.
patient experience now, unhappy staff influence and definitely create unhappy patients. Now, happy staff don't necessarily make for happy patients, but unhappy staff certainly. So,
Right.
working on the patient experience is supported by team development. And team development certainly happens with the mindset of the leader at the top. Whether it's verbal or nonverbal, it's about their mindset. And is it, man, those leads are really bad. Man, that marketing company is really frustrating. Man, it's this problem. Man, it's that problem. Is it the whack-a-mole mindset or is it the abundance mindset of more is coming? It's
Mhm.
okay, we can overcome this situation. Together we can do anything. And that abundance mindset, that's the mindset coaching. And it's not I don't let me disparage others and you might have to cut this out, but it's not like the fluffy. It's the actionable steps of how do we get into an abundance mindset? I need to work on my abundance mindset. And it's the actionable items of before we even start our engagement, what have you told me your goals are? And it's not just I'm doing 4 arches a month and I want to do 10. Okay. If that's your goal, what are the steps to get there? And perhaps it's not so much looking outward, but turning that mirror this way and saying, what needs to change in me? Because I might be the obstacle that's holding us back from getting there. And that's really what about the mindset coaching is with our top clients, our elite clients, which is the one-to-one with me, which I continually grow and learn to become better at that for them and with them. And it's more of a mutuality of learning and growing with them about their particular need.
That's amazing. When you go through that coaching, who's the first person that you're coaching? Is it the doctor owner? Is it a treatment coordinator? Is it
Exclusively, that's the doctor owner. Yeah, we have like our treatment coordinators, our senior sales managers who have been treatment coordinators and coaching them, coach the treatment coordinators. Those that have done lead calls and converting lead calls and reducing no-shows work with those that do the lead calls. Our operations, senior manager, director works with the operations folks. I'm kind of like that air traffic controller over the top, but for myself, I'm the one working with that owner, founder, sometimes like the regional manager for a couple of the DSOs and emerging groups that we work with. That's the one-to-one that happens because that's the trickle down effect that really is most effective for sure.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And we should. I mean, I know this is not the topic for today, but I'm going to throw it out there. We need to talk about getting you at the dental leadership summit maybe this year, and having you speak about the mindset exercises that you go through, because what I find is that it really all comes down to that, right? It all comes down to, how are they viewing their team? How are they viewing the patient experience? How are they viewing, what service and they're providing? Do they believe in what they're providing? Do they not believe in what they're providing? A lot of that goes a long way. And I have an example about this. We have a client that you did not work with actually, but was doing a lot of all on fours, and was killing it for a while, like about maybe a year and a half to 2 years, just absolutely killing it, and bought multiple offices because it worked in the first one, and then what ended up happening was he didn't have the infrastructure correct, right? And so suddenly that revenue that he was enjoying, that was funding a lot of his growth, started to dissipate, and it was timed actually, or coincided with problems on the HR side that he had with his team, right? People that were coming and going, disgruntled employees. He had a lawsuit that came and went. We helped him with. I mean, there was just a lot of little things, and it all came back to impacting the calls that were coming in, the patients that were being consulted with, the treatment plans, the case acceptance, and here's, I think, the key, and maybe we can end on this, Greg, because I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I find that the difference between an uber successful practice and a practice that's doing good, but maybe not great, is not usually a big issue, right? It's not usually a big pain point. It's usually like one little thing that's missing. It could be a front receptionist that doesn't say hello. It could be someone who is maybe doing a treatment plan that's not smiling, that's not giving it with energy. It might be an office manager that's maybe yelling and screaming at the team, and then the team isn't invigorated enough to sell and to promote it. I mean, it's all of these little things that are so hard to find, right? So hard to find. So let's finish up on that. What do you see most commonly be that little thing that holds teams back in these kinds of scenarios?
Yeah, it's amazing. And you course corrected there. And I was going to say, mostly I agree with you, because you said it's usually one thing, and then you added in there, it's a lot of little things. And this is literally what I speak on. And when I share, I was just 2 weeks ago, I was asked by a fairly large DSO of about 100 locations to do 3 breakout sessions on case acceptance, and over and over shared with them, it's not a big thing. It's a accumulation of a bunch of little things. And that's really what case acceptance is all about. And it's about the mindset. And that's why with every practice we work with, this is a free resource, and there's a ton of free resources that you can find on website and on my personal LinkedIn, on G&A Consult LinkedIn, on Instagram, Facebook. Go grab it. Like, start using it and implementing it. If you want more, then great. Let's have a conversation. And that's what we call the single sheet. The single sheet in Full Arch is the steps, and it's just a simple outline step specific to your practice. But what are the 5 to 7 steps that a Full Arch patient goes through, starting with the consultation, all the way through until that deliver that brand new smile, or hopefully hybrid maintenance if you do that too, right? The cleanings that happen after you deliver that brand new smile. And everyone in the practice is responsible for knowing that, from the surgeon to the front desk, to the janitor, to the person doing your books. Everybody has to know it. And why is that important, Ali? Because I can tell you, when a patient comes in and is covering their mouth because they haven't had any treatment done by you yet, and then they get their temporaries placed after surgery, and suddenly they're smiling, and they're walking to go use the restroom, and somebody who's not even a part of the process, because maybe you have a thriving GP practice as well, and it might be a hygienist or it might be an assistant that isn't a part of your micro team that does Full Arch, notices and says, "Wow, didn't I see you a couple months ago? That's amazing. You have an amazing smile. Oh yeah, these are just my temporary teeth. You're going to look great when you get your finals." at least knowing where they're at in that patient journey, lifting that up, that's what you're talking about. Everybody being a part of that, because it adds such value to the practice and overall to the culture that everybody's a part of. It's called a single sheet, and it's pretty straightforward. You can find that resource. Every single full arch practice should have it and implement it. And you can implement that in your morning huddle to where everybody's a part of it and knows it. And it's so critically important. So yes, it is all the little things. It's not generally, it's not one big thing, because you're probably fairly successful at what you're doing if you're also implementing full arch or doing full arch in your practice or practices, for sure.
Greg, I'll have you send me that link, and we'll put it in the show notes for everybody so that everyone can access it. So, all
Sure
right.
thing.
Well, thank you. You are the guru of full arch. Thank you for being here in this second part of this series, and excited to for everyone to move to the part 3, which will drop very soon. Greg, thank you again for being here with us.
Thanks, my friend.